Hello, in this video we want to promote our co-op server to a domain controller. But before we do that, we have to check that our DNS and DHCP is working correctly. So we see here in the server manager one notification. We click here and see that we have to do something on the DHCP server. So we have to click commit here, close, and we have finished this here. Then we go to our DNS server and check if we have a forward lookup zone here and we have a reverse lookup zone here. We will check if we have valid IP addresses for the co-op server here. And I think we will delete this here because we need primarily this network here. Then we check the properties here. Dynamic updates are allowed. This looks fine. We will delete this one here, say apply. This is allowed. And this here looks also fine. Then we will delete this here and control the reverse lookup zone here. Dynamic updates are allowed. Zone transfer is allowed. And we will correct here the IP address. Fine. So this looks fine too. Then we will check our DHCP server here. This is correct. And we only need this scope here, and this will be deleted now. So this looks also be fine, and we have the DNS domain name set here correctly. Then we go to our server manager, manage, add roles and features, say next, next, next. And here we install the Active Directory domain services, include all management tools. For the graphical user interface, say add features and click next, 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 and install. This now may take a while. When the installation has finished here, we see that the configuration is required. So we can click here and promote this server to a domain controller. We click it and maximize it. With several options here now, we can say add a domain controller to an existing domain. If we want to make a second backup domain controller, for example, we can add a new domain to an existing forest. So we create something like a subdomain to an existing domain, and we can say add a new forest. What we will do now is we say add a new forest because we have no IT infrastructure at the moment. Then we should select the root domain name. This should be the same as you see here. I prefer corp .zz. You should take a name that is not really existing on the internet for testing purposes. Otherwise, you have the disadvantage, for example, if you call it google.com or Microsoft.com, then this has also to be Microsoft.com, and you won't be able to access the Microsoft.com website and their update services and everything else. So we use a name that does not exist on the internet, and also a top-level domain that does not exist on the internet. So .zz is not existing at the moment. And also, if you choose a name like corp.zz for your company's infrastructure, you won't have any discussions if you buy another company and they want to have their name in your name and this stuff. So you have forever a relatively neutral name for your infrastructure. So I will take this now and say next. Then on the next page we can set and select the forest functional level and the domain functional level here. So if you use very old computers and you have a very old infrastructure, it might be necessary to select an older standard here. The same is for the second here, but in this case I will use the actual standard of Windows Server 2012 R2. You see that you will have the following specified domain controller capabilities. You will have the domain name system, you have the DNS server here, and you have a global catalog where your items will be stored. Then you have to select a directory services restore mode password. This password is used if you boot your domain controller with the F8 button during the startup process. So we will select our password that we use for everything else here, the password 1 and the exclamation mark. The password you will find in the video description below. Then we click next. Then you say here create DNS delegation to set the specific resource records for your DNS domain here. So you see that you can't click next or install, so I think I should enter here my administrator account to allow this here. Say next. Then the next thing here to enter is the NetBIOS domain name. NetBIOS is a very old standard protocol for Microsoft related networks to identify PCs in your network. So here you will use your DNS domain name without the top level domain. So we call this corp and say next. Then you can specify where your Active Directory database, the log files and the system volumes will be stored. We let this here and we won't change this now. We say next, and then we get a summary to review our selections here. We control this, and you see that the password of the new domain administrator will be the same as the local administrator of this computer here now. We will try to click more about installation options. Okay, here we come to a web page. Then we will click next. Now it makes also some checks. So here we get the warning that we have to be careful about cryptography algorithms compatible with Windows NT 4. We don't have Windows NT 4, so this won't be necessary for us, and all prerequisite checks passed successfully. So we can click install, and the server will be rebooted automatically after the installation has finished. So now, for example, it checks if the group policy management console needs to be installed and some other things. This may take a while. So after the installing process, you see the warning that the machine will reboot now. What happens after the reboot, you will see in the next video. See you soon.